Last night, Nebraska fell in heartbreaking fashion versus Illinois 31-24 in overtime. So over the last couple hours, I've painfully rewatched the game and I've come up with 5 things that we learned Friday night versus the Illini. So really quick, I know we took a loss yesterday, but if you're still optimistic about the future of Nebraska football, please hit that like button because I still am. And hey, if you're new to the channel or if a returning viewer, make sure to subscribe. I post daily Nebraska football content. Nobody else on Husker YouTube does that. So make sure to subscribe. You will not regret it. But without further ado, let's get into it. Talking about the game. Yesterday night, Nebraska fell in a ranked-on-ranked matchup versus Illinois in a close affair, but the Big Red couldn't get it done. My first storyline is pretty simple. It's something that I told you all week long. This game would tell us how good Nebraska really is. Okay, if Nebraska won this game in dominating fashion, it would tell us that we're potentially in the mix for the Big Ten, that we're potentially in the mix for the College 12 playoff. But if we lost that game, it told us that we aren't good enough. That's exactly what it did. This humbled the fan base a little bit. This humbled the team a little bit because there were some wild and lofty expectations that were rolling on social media over the last couple of weeks. That Nebraska's this dark horse to make a push for the playoff, this, that, and the third. We got ahead of ourselves. And we showed the national media last night, we showed everybody around the country that we are just not where we need to be just yet. And we'll get into why. But we should all now know how good Nebraska really is. I still think we're a fine team. I still think we're worthy of winning 7, 8, 9 games. We are just not in the mix for a college football playoff. Never talk about that ever again. We should not be ranked for a very long time. We should not be even, talked about by the national media. Let's not do it. Let's get the spotlight off of us. We don't deserve it because we had it on us and we did not play well. So I told you guys that all week. This game would tell us how good we actually are. I was correct. It proved that we are just not taking that next step just yet. And that's okay. Second thing, let's talk about Matt Rhule. Because there are some, I don't want to say red flags, but there are some concerns. Now, first things first, I have to preface this. I'm not blaming Matt Rhule for the loss yesterday. I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not doing that. But I'm going to throw some stats at you. When Matt Rhule was hired by Nebraska, everybody acknowledged how good of a developer he was and how good of a just overall rebuilder he is as a head coach. But the big concern that people told Nebraska fans, they said, Matt Rhule can never win the big game. He's never been able to do that. With Nebraska's loss yesterday, Matt Rhule has fell to 2-20 in his entire career against AP top 25 teams. Let me repeat that. 2-20. That's less than 10% of a victory. That's unbelievable. Nebraska, in general, as a football program, that's our 27th consecutive ranked loss. It's almost unfathomable for both Matt Rhule and the Huskers. So, as I'm not going to blame Matt Rhule for this loss, there are a lot of issues. The team did not execute the way we wanted them to. Again, we'll get to that as the video progresses. This coaching staff was not great either. But the stats don't lie, guys. And Matt Rhule's just never been able to win that big game. He didn't even do it last year. He had a million opportunities to win a big game last year. He could have beat Iowa. He could have beat Wisconsin. And we fumbled every single time, figuratively. And we lost those close games. His best win as Nebraska's head coach was against Colorado this year. A bad Colorado team. He's not had a big victory yet. So those people who warned us about that when he was hired, they're true. And I'm not going at Matt Rhule. I love Matt Rhule. And I'm not blaming him for the loss. But man, it hurts to not have a big victory under his belt within the first 2 years. And again, I think Matt Rhule is a great team builder. He's proven that time and time again. I believe he's a great developer. But when it comes down, and somebody mentioned this in my live stream yesterday, when it comes down to being a good X's and O's head coach and just purely out coaching another squad, Matt Rhule has not really done his job so far in that department. Because let's be frank, Brett Bielema was a heck of a head coach. He's had success against Nebraska in the past, and he outcoached us last night. That was one of the reasons they won. So when it comes to these X's and O's, Matt Rhule has fell short. And that's why we didn't make a bowl game last year. That's why we lost yesterday. Part of it. So again, I'm not blaming Matt Rhule for the loss necessarily, but man, it's just frustrating to have that. And hopefully, again, we can get this big victory under our belt, but we just didn't get yesterday. And everything, we had everything in our favor to win, and we still didn't do it. So I wanted to talk about that. Let's talk about the defense in my third storyline. Because, going into this ball game, my whole question was around the offense, how they can produce, because I knew this defense was going to play well. That's why I was so incredibly disappointed when they did what they did against the Illini. The first half was honestly not bad. They performed pretty well. The second half was absolutely abysmal by this defense. They gave up around 7-8 yards per carry. Again, the holes were so big for Illinois in the running game, and then just little dink and dunk passes. Illinois had 4 touchdown passes against us. Every single one of those, you can rewatch every single one of them. They had a wide open receiver, tight end, offensive lineman. Every single one of them. Wide open. Nobody within 5 feet. The defense was, there's no other word. It was bad. It was horrendous. Okay. The defensive line I was really disappointed with. We had 2 sacks on the day. 2 of them, basically the only 2 were because Altmaier scrambled outside the pocket and went down himself. We didn't really get any real pressure on him. And again, like I mentioned, the run stopping was really, really bad. So I don't know where we go forward as a defense. It's humbling. I still think we have a decent defense, but we're not top 10, we're not top 20. Let's throw that out the window, especially after after yesterday's performance. Again, before I get to my fourth storyline, let's just get to my fourth storyline actually. The positives, and we need to talk about the positives because there's always positives out of games like this. I thought Raiola was awesome. I really did. He had a good stat line, 300 yards passing, 24 for 35. Of course, he had the interception. It was not his fault again. Super unlucky. And I think the only play where I was like, Dylan, what are we doing? He took some sacks. That's not necessarily his fault. The offensive line had a terrible day. We did not win the battle of the trenches in any department. But Dylan had a bad pass in that fourth quarter that could have had a go-ahead touchdown. He just overthrew Luke Lindenmeyer. That was the only time. But I thought Dylan played good. We did not lose because of Dylan. So let's get that out of the way. Receivers played well. Isaiah Nayer's a stud. Buy stock. Jamal Banks, I predicted him to have a breakout game. He did just that. He was great. And I thought the running backs played well. Again, it was not their fault. The running game couldn't get going. It was because of the offensive line. So those are my positives. But I want to talk about Illinois before I get to my fifth storyline. I know people are going to, by the time we get to Monday, people are going to say, oh no, Illinois is actually really good. Like we should actually be excited. We should be happy about this loss because they'll try to spin it as a more victory. Like I think Illinois is a decent team, but are they a top 15 team in America? Really? I don't think so. They're going to struggle. They're going to lose to Penn State next week. They're going to lose to better teams. I think they'll probably end up with 7 or 8 wins when it's all said and done. So, again, Illinois is a good team. They're not a great team. We should have won. We had $1 million opportunity to do so, and we didn't do it. Fifth storyline, special teams. I was concerned about the kicking situation all offseason. Who's going to be that guy? Is it Alvano? Is it Hull? And I sat here all week, and I told you, I think Hull's going to get an opportunity. And I still stand by that. Like, Hull got his opportunity, and he missed it. And now, we have 2 bad kickers, not just one. I'm going to be frank with you guys. Like, again, Alvano, I saw his song and dance. We all saw his song and dance. He misses field goals on the regular. He's not consistent. Let's give Hull opportunity. He also missed. And it was a bad snap. I rewatched that play. It was a very, very poor snap. Poor snap, poor Hull, but it was a missed kick at the end of the day. We don't have a single competent kicker on our team. I don't care what it takes. Next year in the transfer portal, let's tamper. Let's throw some NIL money. Let's get a real kicker. We should not have 2 scholarship kickers who cannot actually make field goals. Like, it is what it is. You do whatever you got to do. Those guys should not be on scholarship next year. If they can't figure it out, you get yourself a real field goal kicker going into 2025. And then also, I should mention our punt returns with our gunners going down the field and actually tackling on those punt returns. Awful. Just awful. Illinois was getting a bunch of good punt returns and kick returns against us. So again, very big special teams issue. Twitter was calling for Ed Foley's head. I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not usually the guy to, try to have coaches fired. I think that's dumb, especially this early in the year. Definitely something to note, though, because Ed Foley, he struggled last year as the special teams coach. Struggling again this year, but I will say this, Matt Rhule will not fire him because I think one thing about Matt Rhule is he's very loyal. Loyal almost to a fault. He's not going to fire Ed Foley. So let's just put it out there. Nebraska, loses to Illinois in a game that we just got dominated. Like, we can blame the refs about it. I think the refs played a part in us losing. But again, we had a million opportunities to win and we still didn't execute. We still didn't do our job. And that falls on the coaching staff, that falls on the players, that falls on everybody. We lost the line of scrimmage. We lost the battle of the trenches. We somehow won the turnover battle. But we got outplayed in the majority of this ballgame, specifically in the second half. We didn't deserve to win. It's a team effort. It's the same way when you win, it's a team effort. Same way when you lose. It's team loss. We got to treat it like that. So where do we go from here? Well, we still have 8 more games. Season's still beginning. I think we are still a 7-8 win team. Like, I'm not going to, there are people overreacting saying, oh, we're done. We're done. We're not even going to make a bowl. Like, who are these people? No, we're not doing that here. We're good enough to win 8 games. We're just not, it proved that we're not good enough to compete for a Big Ten title, just not yet. That's what it proved to us last night. Well, we got humbled, but I'm going to tell you this. Depending on how we respond versus Purdue, that's going to tell us how good we could be going forward. Okay, it's all about the response now. We got humbled. We got punched in the mouth. How do you respond? Notre Dame got punched in the mouth versus Northern Illinois a couple weeks ago. They played Purdue in West Lafayette and beat them by like 70. Hey, we have the exact same scenario. We're going to West Lafayette next week. Let's try to put up 70 as well. Hey, who knows? All right, guys. I'm mentioning my offensive and defensive MVPs as usual. My offensive MVP, Isaiah Nair, was awesome. Again, 2 clutch touchdowns. Should have had a third. The refs, of course, had other plans. I thought the call was okay. It was a 50-50 call. Again, it was close. It was close. And then defensive MVP, absolutely nobody deserves it. Nobody deserves it. The defense was just disappointing. It was disappointing from a unit we thought was better. But I'll throw out one name that I thought played well. I thought Sear Wright had some good reps. When Tommy Hill got injured and Sear Wright came in the ballgame, I thought Sear Wright was pretty good, had some good tackles, pretty good coverage. Something to watch for the rest of the season. All right, guys. Pretty depressing loss against Illinois. Again, I'm not going to sugarcoat things, but I still think we're fine going forward. I think we're going to win 8 games. That was my original prediction this offseason. I told you guys in the offseason I don't think we were going to start off 7-0. Okay, cool. Let's win the next 3. Let's be 6-1 going into Ohio State. That feels good. So let's do that. But it's all about how this team responds. All about how this team responds. We will see next week versus Purdue. Everybody, enjoy your Saturday. Let me know down below. What was your main takeaway from Nebraska versus Illinois? Positive, negative, let me know. And hey, if you made this far in the video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And as always, folks, go Grad, go Matt Rhule, and see you in the next one.